looking to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. The President has approved the creation of a new interagency committee on inflation and market outlook to be co-chaired by the National Economic and Development Authority and the Department of Finance. The UN and partners issued an urgent appeal for $876 million to help Rohingya refugees and their hosts in Bangladesh. Thai wildlife officials said they have intercepted a shipment of nearly 50 monkeys believed to be on their way to China for use in traditional medicine. And again, we go back to Kota, Kinabalu with our correspondent Raymar Gutierrez, who explores the night food market there. And now to the news. President Marcos has approved the creation of a new interagency committee, or IAC, on inflation and market outlook to be co-chaired by the National Economic and Development Authority and the Department of Finance. This newly formed committee shall serve as an advisory board to the President and the Cabinet on measures to mitigate inflation and ensure food and energy security while balancing the interests of local food producers, consumers, and the overall economy. Take a look.
And then, sabi namin, kailangan ng early warning systems. So, magkakaroon ng isang komite na pinorm ng Presidente na chair ako at saka co-chair ko si Secretary Balisacan Neda, Vice Chairman si DBM Secretary, si Mina, and then member noon ng Agriculture, member ang DTI, at member din ng DILG. Ang gagawin lang, at saka DOST, itong committee na ito ay it's called Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook. So, hindi na magiging ad hoc yung kasi pagka parang nag-create ng committee pagka mag-import na, no? Ganun. Eh, minsan mali yung timing. Kasi magdidesisyon ka mag-import, tapos darating dito sa atin, tama-tama nag-aani naman yung mga farmers. So, umaangal talaga sila. So, dapat talaga i-forecast mo yung, there should be a scientific, science-based forecast. No? Madali naman mag-forecast ng production. Gamitin mo satellite o kaya yung, para makita mo na pag nagtanim pa lang, so, malalaman mo na how many hectares have been planted. Ganun. So, nakikita mo yung development. Tapos kung magkaroon ng bagyo, makikita mo rin through the satellite. So makikita mo. So we will use that kind of model, no, to forecast. So this will be a permanent committee. Ang trabaho nito ay yun nga, to come up with a demand and supply situation, and we will report to the President on a monthly basis kung ano ang sitwasyon. Kung kailangan mag-angkat, mag-aangkat tayo. So hindi na ad hoc yung decision to import kung kailangan mag-import, no?
Now, the President also approved the creation of the Economic Development Group, which NEDA and the DOF will also co-chair. The group will assist the Executive Department in harmonizing, coordinating, and complementing, plus synergizing the efforts that will ensure the country's rapid, inclusive, and sustained growth. In other news beyond the region, many of Britain's largest grocery store chains this week introduced limits on the sale of specific vegetables and fruits as shortages of certain products continue to extend across the UK. Our correspondent from the UK, Love and Season, reports from London.
Shortages of fruit and vegetables, from broccoli, cucumbers, and lettuce to tomatoes, peppers, and raspberries, have served up a blame game here in Britain. Are limited shop shelves due to Brexit, bad weather in Spain, supermarket price wars, soaring energy bills in the Ukraine war fallout? or the UK government. Faced with low stock, an increasing number of retailers are rationing, with some allowing no more than 3 purchases per customer on certain items. The weekly shop for millions of Britons has also been blighted for months by a lack of eggs because of bird flu. The government insists bad weather hit harvests in southern Europe and northern Africa, while authorities and supermarket chains warn that shortages of fresh produce will last for weeks. Mark Spencer, Britain's junior minister with responsibility for food, has urged supermarket bosses to explain what they are doing to replenish the shelves. Environment Minister Therese Coffey called on Britons to eat more local seasonal produce, such as turnips, rather than imported foodstuffs in short supply. President of the National Farmers Union, NFU, in Britain heaped praise on the UK system that produces cheap food, but warned it faced huge cost of inflation, particularly for vital elements such as animal feed, energy, and fertilizers. Record-breaking temperatures last summer also weighed heavily on UK farming production, driving up prices in the long term. UK food price inflation soared above 17% last month, according to a survey from a data provider, Qatar. NFU president called on the government to implement a strategy to help UK farmers boost production, protect the environment, and manage volatility. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Love and Season, reminding you to stay alert because we live in extraordinary times.
Now, the United Nations and partners issued an urgent appeal for $876 million to help Rohingya refugees and their hosts in Bangladesh. The funding is needed to support 1.47 million people and involves 116 partners, nearly half of them national organizations from Bangladesh. Almost 1 million Rohingya refugees who fled Myanmar and are now sheltering in Bangladesh will get help, along with nearly 500,000 Bangladeshis in neighboring communities. They will receive food, shelter, healthcare, access to drinkable water, protection services, education, as well as livelihood opportunities and training. Women and children make up more than 75% of the targeted refugee population. They face higher risks of abuse, exploitation, and gender-based violence, warned the UN Refugee Agency, which noted that more than half of the refugees in camps are under 18. A huge fire on Sunday tore through parts of the vast Cox's Bazar camp in Bangladesh, leaving thousands without shelter. Meanwhile, the United States announced $26 million in new humanitarian aid for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh and elsewhere in that region of Asia. Take a look.
Done. The United States announced nearly $26 million in additional humanitarian assistance for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh and the region, for those people in Burma affected by ongoing violence and for the communities hosting refugees from Burma. With this new funding, our total assistance for those affected by the Rakhine State and Rohingya crisis has reached nearly $2.1 billion since August of 2017, when over 740,000 Rohingya were forced to flee to safety in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. This new funding allows our humanitarian partners to continue providing life-saving assistance to affected communities on both sides of the Burma-Bangladesh border, including nearly 980,000 Rohingya refugees hosted by Bangladesh, some 740,000 of whom arrived in the months following August 2017, when they were forced to flee genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and other horrific atrocities and abuses perpetrated by Burma's military in Rakhine State. This funding will also provide assistance to nearly 540,000 Bangladeshi host community members and to others affected by ongoing violence in Burma. The United States appreciates the generosity of the government of Bangladesh and other nations and the hospitality of the Bangladeshi people in hosting Rohingya refugees, especially now that we are in the 6th year of this protracted crisis. We remain committed to working towards durable solutions to the crisis and will continue to partner with the government of Bangladesh, the Rohingya community, host communities, and people inside Burma to ensure a coordinated and well-supported response to this humanitarian crisis. The international community must remain steadfast in our commitment to alleviating the suffering of the world's most vulnerable people, including through the Rohingya crisis response.
In tonight's other news, inflation in Laos jumped to 41.26% year-on-year in February from 40.3% in January, according to the Laos Statistics Bureau. According to a report on Xinhua, according to a report released on Monday on the Bureau's website, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages has surged by 49.33%. Xinhua News Agency said the price of communications and transport rose by 47.42%. The cost of medical care and medicine increased by 42.4%. Meanwhile, the cost of hotel and restaurant category surged by 36.23%. The cost of household utilities rose by 35.4%. The cost of housing, water, electricity, and gas categories surged by 28.26%. In addition, the cost in the alcohol and tobacco category rose by 26.43%, and the cost of clothing and footwear category increased by 25.28%. Inflation in Laos has increased significantly since the beginning of 2022, with rising prices continuing to inflict hardship on people's daily life. Lao government has vowed to take further actions to stabilize currency exchange rates and inflation, rein in rising prices, and foster trade and investment in a bid to revive its economy. Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flew on an FA-50 fighter jet today during the Philippine Air Force's capability demonstration.
Since the enactment of Republic Act number 10349, or the revised AFP modernization program, we have seen the realization of various projects and the acquisition of more modern equipment to fortify our country's defense systems. Today, I am glad to be with you as we bear witness to the ceremonial turnover and blessing of the C-295 medium-lift aircraft and the demonstration of the flight capabilities of the FA-50PH. Let me convey my congratulations and the gratitude to the Philippine Air Force for its successful acquisition of 3 C-295 medium-lift aircraft since last year. This attests to the progress of our nation in upgrading our defense capabilities. Allow me, of course, to thank the government of Spain for assisting our Air Force in this acquisition and consequently bolstering the defense posture of our country. As much as our maritime environment provides us with much needed resources, it also requires us to constantly adapt to become more mobile and agile. To this end, our FA-50 fighter jets shall improve our maritime patrol capability, aid our Air Force in monitoring the developments within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, and provide close air support to our combat troops. The country is also challenged by various climate-related hazards, which can potentially paralyze government and business operations. Through the additional C-295 aircraft, the AFP will be able to provide more responsive support to government agencies, especially in emergency situations, and on humanitarian assistance and disaster response operations.
In other news, the U.S. Justice Department sued to block a $3.8 billion JetBlue Spirit airline merger, saying that the combination would harm consumers and violate antitrust law. Take a look.
Short, if not blocked, the merger of JetBlue and Spirit would result in higher fares and fewer choices for tens of millions of travelers across the country. The Justice Department is suing to prevent that from happening. We allege that JetBlue's proposed takeover of Spirit will only exacerbate concentration and further stifle competition in the airline industry. JetBlue's elimination of Spirit as an independent company increases the risk that the remaining airlines, including JetBlue, would coordinate to raise prices or reduce capacity on particular routes where Spirit currently operates. And we further allege that the impact of this merger will be particularly harmful for travelers who rely on what are known as ultra-low-cost carriers in order to fly.
Now, the suit puts in jeopardy a transaction that JetBlue has characterized as consumer-friendly because it would create a stronger competition to the big four carriers that dominate the U.S. market. The companies defended the tie-up, saying a joint statement Tuesday that they would continue to advance their effort to extend the JetBlue effect, which has historically pressured bigger airlines to price more affordably. The joint press release said JetBlue would retrofit Spirit aircraft to allow more legroom, adding that the lost seats on aircraft would be offset by a greater number of flights. A United Nations conference underway in Doha, Qatar has turned its attention to one of the most nettlesome global challenges, closing the staggeringly wide digital divide between the world's rich and poor nations. Fresh attention to this issue comes as a new UN report finds that 2/3 of the population of the least developed countries, or LDCs, is still offline. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zambia.
And we should not forget that connectivity is not an end in itself. It is a means. It's a means to having access to the tools that are going to make someone more productive in their work, that are going to make someone more creative in expressing themselves. As education and healthcare becomes progressively reliant on these things, on access to these things, it's going to be an essential, fundamental need to actually advance people's well-being and their lives. And so we just can't lose sight of that. We made a commitment through our Airband initiative to expand internet access to 250 million people worldwide. And we had the Viasat partnership that was already referred to, that was the first 10 million in that direction. We also have a commitment to have 100 million more people online in Africa, and the partnership with Liquid is taking us to the first 20 million of those. Partnership has to be absolutely at the heart of this approach. Even for a company as big as ours, when you're faced with a challenge of this scale, you're only going to make progress by partnering.
Now, digitalization is seen as a way to leapfrog the development and helping the population to access new possibilities, such as electronic commerce, services provided through electronic means in remote areas. So digitalization is seen as really important means to deal with some of these challenges. And one of the major challenges in digital areas is the lack of access of population to internet. In developed countries, 88% of the population have access to internet. In LDCs, the average is 36%. And for women in LDCs, it's only 30%. The public incentives, you need international partners to support, because for LDCs, some are very, very small. They don't have economies of scale. So you really have to look at how private sector can invest, but also get a return.
Now, more news beyond the region. 2 of the 4 U.S. citizens kidnapped after crossing over the border into northeastern Mexico have been found. Take a look.
We'll take your questions. First, today we learned the very sad news that Mexican state and federal authorities recovered 4 U.S. citizens kidnapped on March 3rd in Matamoros, Mexico. 2 U.S. citizens were returned to the United States. The bodies of 2 other U.S. citizens killed in the same incident were also recovered. We're providing all appropriate assistance to them and their families. We extend our deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased. We thank our Mexican and U.S. law enforcement partners for their efforts to find these innocent victims, and the task forward is to ensure that justice is done.
Se va fortaleciendo la línea de que fue una confusión, no fue una agresión directa. Autoridades mexicanas entregaron a autoridades estadounidenses la mujer que resultó ilesa y el hombre que se encuentra herido en el puente internacional de Bronzeville y Matamoros.
Attacks on U.S. citizens are unacceptable, no matter where or under what circumstances they happen. We will continue to work closely with the Mexican government to ensure justice is done in this case.
Now take a look at this video. This happened in Matamoros Friday, about a 12-minute drive from Brownsville, Texas. The FBI says the Americans entered Mexico driving a white minivan with North Carolina license plates. Shortly after crossing the border, gunmen opened fire on the passengers inside the vehicle. Now, the Mexican president said the Americans were there to buy medicines, and they ended up in the crossfire between two groups. This part of Mexico is under a level 4 do not travel advisory, the State Department's highest warning level. Matamoros, located across the U.S. border from Brownsville, Texas, has been beset by violence linked to drug trafficking and other organized crime. The U.S. State Department advises against travel to Tamaulipas due to crime and kidnapping. In other news, a report from the Bangkok Post reported that a pulmonologist from Siraraj Hospital has suggested people wear masks to protect themselves from dust pollution as the number of patients with respiratory diseases continues to rise, especially among children. Now, 48 provinces were found to have ultra-fine dust particles, PM2.5 levels, above the safe threshold on Tuesday. Health authorities are saying hospitals nationwide have now seen a spike in cases that began in December. The authority said the haze pollution usually peaks around January to March, resulting in health issues that could otherwise be avoided, particularly among children. Authorities are now suggesting people wear masks outdoors rather than rely on nasal sprays or solutions, as these can cause infections. The Center for Air Pollution Mitigation reported on Tuesday that the PM2.5 levels in every region except for the south had risen above the government's safe threshold. Thai wildlife officials said they have intercepted a shipment of nearly 50 monkeys believed to be on their way to China for use in traditional medicine. Take a look. Now, these are the macaques, and they were found hidden in plastic bags inside crates on a pickup truck at a police checkpoint on a highway to Laos, according to the Department of National Parks in a statement. One of the contraband simians died, but 46 were rescued alive and are now being looked after by wildlife officials. Video footage released by the department shows officials freeing the gray-brown primates, some of them babies and some looking weak, from blue plastic bags. Now, the truck's driver and passenger have been arrested on charges of illegally possessing and trading protected animals. Now, they could face up to 10 years in prison or a fine of nearly $30,000 US. Thailand is a major transit hub for wildlife smugglers, with animals often bound for China or Vietnam, where they are used in traditional medicine. And again, we go back to Kota, Kinabalu with our correspondent Raymar Gutierrez, who explores the night food market there. Take a look.
I just went to Kota, Kinabalu, Malaysia in Sabah once again. This time to explore more of its history. After my short flight from Manila, since it was a Friday, I head straight to the famous weekend food market in Gaya Street. So welcome to Gaya Street. Every Friday and Saturday from 6 p.m. to 12 midnight, foodies gather here to try and taste different kinds of cuisine and snacks from all over Malaysia. Delicious aroma of different food will make your mouth water as you enter the streets. Everything smells so good. Good thing I haven't had my dinner, or else I will have no room to try all of this. So without further ado, let's taste the first meal of the day. This kebab stall that is frequented by many.
So this kebab was originally from Turkey, but the owner said that they modified the taste to Malaysian standards. So let's try it. The bread is really soft, and I can really taste the beef. Wow.
Let's try more meat. This time, the Malaysia's favorite, satay. This stall sells it all, from beef, goat, and chicken, paired with the peanutty satay sauce. Yummy!
This is the beef satay. You can taste some Indian spices, and as well, the taste is really peanutty from the sauce. The meat is soft. Now let's try the chicken. The taste is somehow similar because of the same marinade that they use. Although the difference is the texture of the meat and the taste of the meat.
For dessert, let's try a different kind of pancake called a pambalik, which is cooked in a very unique way.
So what I'm eating right now is called a pambalik. They say a pambalik is like a pancake, but really, really crispy. It's really good. And inside there's some sweet syrup, crushed peanuts, and even corn. Wow.
Too bad I'm too full to try other sumptuous dishes they are having. And know what? It's all reasonably priced as well. It was really a great experience eating here at the food market, and I hope you too will come and experience it for yourselves.
Again, from Sabah, Malaysia, this is Raymart Gutierrez reminding you to stay alert because we live in extraordinary times.
Thanks, Raymart. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, reminding you to stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.